Okay, if I want to graph this equation y equals 2 times the cosine of this angle, 3x minus 120, and I want to do it using period, phase shift, and amplitude. So the idea here is that cosine function um, repeats every 360 degrees. So I need to look at this angle starting at 0 degrees to ending at 360 degrees, and that would be one complete cycle for this cosine equation, because that's one complete revolution from 0 all the way to 360. So this is one complete cycle. So what I'll do is my graph starts when my angle equals 0 degrees. So my angle is 3x minus 120 degrees. When that equals 0 degrees, that's when I'll start my graph. Well, my graph relates to x and y, so I need to solve this for x to determine where my graph starts on the x-axis. So add 120 degrees to both sides and divide by 3, and my graph is going to start when x is 40 degrees. My cycle, let's not say graph, let's say the cycle. One cycle starts at when the angle is 0 degrees, and the cycle ends when the angle equals 360 degrees. So I take my angle, which is 3x minus 120, set it equal to 360, add the 120, and divide by 3. So my graph now ends, or my cycle ends, when my angle is 360 degrees. Well, we know a cosine equation looks like this. So this is what I need to graph, starting when x is 40, so let's call this 40. If that's 40, then this is 80, 120, 160. So there's the ending area, my end of my cycle. So at the start of my cycle, I'm going to start up here at the top of my graph, and the top of this graph is going to be at 2. That's what this number does. So let's mark this as 2. I'm going to start there. I'm going to end there because it's one complete cycle, right? That's here and here. And in the middle, I'm going to be at the bottom of my graph, which will be at -2. So I have 3 tick marks here, so I'm 1.5 to be the middle, so that's down here. If I wanted to know that angle, I could easily find it here. This is 40, 80. This is 120. So between 80 and 120 is 100 degrees. That would be my halfway point. And then I simply can draw my graph. And this is one complete cycle of this equation. And one complete cycle is what we call a period. The length of that is called a period. So in this case, the period is the difference between 40 and 160, so it's 120 degrees. That's my period. Now cosine usually starts right at the axis, but in this case it doesn't. That's what we call a phase shift. So since my graph is shifted to the right by 40 degrees, my phase shift equals positive 40 degrees. If it were shifted left, it'd be negative 40 degrees. And finally, how far up and down I go from the middle is what we call the amplitude. It's always a positive number, so the amplitude here is 2. Not 4, it's 2. It's how far up or how far down, but not together. So that's how you graph a function where you've got all this mess in the angle. You started at 0, ended at 360, and solve for x to find your start and end points on the x-axis. And if it were sine, you would do the exact same thing, right? You'd find your start and end the exact same way, but sine, when you go to graph, it starts here at 0, goes up, down to 0, below, back up to 0. Okay? So you'd have your start point and end point. That would give you this. Halfway between, you'd be at 0, and then you'd go up first and down second, and you could calculate all the exact same values.